Tonight's video is brought to you by Between the Spines UK, an indie business that specialises in all things books. Now this includes blind dates with a book, bookmarks and other book related items. Now here on the website is the autumnal bookmark collection, and then I'm going to make my way to the blind date with a book, where for a modest fee and for the genre of your choice you'll receive a mystery book along with other goodies from the company. Now I naturally went for a horror blind date with a book. These are the delicious beverages that I received: herbal teas, hot chocolates, bespoke bookmarks, obviously Haribos, some little stickers there. And now for the mystery book. This is where the excitement comes with the purchase. And rest assured I'll be leaving links to the company and their socials in the description. And as we get through to the book here, I actually got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, so I'll be starting that book this week. Thanks for listening. Let's begin with a tale from More Night Frights. This is called The Hitchhiker. One evening at twilight, a man was driving along a lonely country road toward a town he'd never visited before. He was on a business trip and he was watching the road signs carefully to see where he was going. The countryside around him was hilly and covered with pine trees. It was the kind of country that made him feel uneasy, because he'd grown up in the city. Like many city people, he found more to be afraid of in wide open spaces than he did on crowded streets. The shadows of the tall trees were growing longer and darker when he came to a fork where the road split into two different directions. The man peered at his map but couldn't find his place anywhere on it. A feeling of panic began to grow in his mind as he looked down one of the desolate roads and then the other. It seemed that neither one led anywhere, and now the sky was turning a dark, inky blue. Just then, a figure appeared only a few feet from his car door. It appeared so quickly that it seemed to come out of nowhere. The man quickly locked his car doors and then watched nervously as the figure came closer. He saw that it was a woman, a young woman, and she seemed to be frightened too. As she came closer to the car, he rolled down the window. "Please, sir," she pleaded with a breathless voice, "could you give me a ride?" The man looked at her with sympathy. She was obviously harmless, he thought, and she needed help. Besides, he told himself, she would be able to direct him to the town he was looking for. "Where can I take you?" he asked the young woman. "You look lost too." "Oh no, I'm not lost," she said. "I live quite nearby. It's just that I need to be someplace soon, and I am too tired to walk." The man told the young woman to get into the car and that he would take her where she needed to go. After sitting down in the front seat, she directed him to take the left fork of the road and drive on for about 4 miles. Before starting off down the road, the man looked at his passenger and noticed the paleness of her skin and the trembling of her hands. He wondered if she had just had a shock, but she didn't answer his questions about how she felt. She just asked him to please hurry. She had to be somewhere and had no time to waste. The man began driving down the road to the left, glancing over at the young woman from time to time. The light was fading rapidly from the sky, but he could still see her clearly. As they drove on, it became darker. It seemed to him that her face was becoming thinner and thinner. Her eyes, when they met his, seemed to become darker and stared out from deep bony sockets in her face. Suddenly, the man felt a tremor of fear pass through his body. He still had no idea where he was going, and this young woman was very strange. "Will this road take me to Wilsonville?" he asked, hoping that her answer would be yes. "Oh no," the young woman answered in a voice that suddenly sounded as thin and dry as old paper. "You'll have to turn around after you drop me off. Wilsonville is on the road that forks to the right." Looking over at her in irritation, the man was shocked to see that her face looked almost like a skull, with bare teeth grinning at him. He quickly stared back at the road, telling himself that the light was bad and his imagination was getting the better of him. A few minutes later, the young woman called out for him to stop. He braked on top of the hill and saw the white tombstones of a cemetery glowing in the moonlight on both sides of the road. Then he heard the car door open, and as he looked over to where his passenger had been, he saw a skeleton stepping away from the car into the cemetery. The man didn't waste any time turning the car around and racing back down the road to the fork. No sooner had he pulled out onto the road that went to the right than he saw the wreck of an automobile. It had exploded into flames and was burnt almost beyond recognition. A policeman was standing beside it, shaking his head as the man pulled up. "Nothing can be done to save her," the policeman said. "She's among the dead now." "I know," the man answered. "I just took her ghost to the graveyard." Next, we're going to look at some true stories from Ghosts and Legends of Staffordshire and the Black Country. We're focusing our attention on a town local to myself. This is Hensford, and the story is the Skeleton Tree. And it goes like so. Mary Sherwood of Hensford was very much in love with her young man, Richard Gordon. But he had one fault that both distressed and alarmed her. He loved to go out poaching on Cannock Chase at night. He was skillful in all the arts of poaching, and he revelled in the excitement of evading the attempts of the rangers and keepers to catch him. However, Mary was pretty and determined, and in order to win her, Richard had to promise to give up the poacher's craft. The young couple did most of their wooing out on Cannock Chase, beneath the shade of a green and leafy oak tree. Although Mary's parents were initially opposed to the match, they were impressed when he swore to give up his nocturnal habits, and eventually they gave their consent. The wedding was arranged, and just like young men today, the groom arranged for a night out drinking with his friends, his last night as a bachelor. Many of his friends were fellow poachers, and they teased Richard unmercifully about his promise to give up his old ways. "He's under the thumb already," they jeered. After a few more drinks, Richard decided that his promise would really begin when he was married. Tonight he was still free, he thought, and maybe his friends were right when they said that he should spend one last night on Cannock Chase, enjoying his favourite pursuit. Despite the wild and stormy weather, off they went for a night's poaching, stopping to make their plans under the very tree where Richard had promised Mary that he would never poach again. His keen hearing and quick wits were somewhat fuddled with the drink, however, and he failed to hear the stealthy approach of a ranger. The man overheard enough to know what they were up to, and he stepped out to challenge them. The poachers yelled their defiance. The ranger became angry, and then someone drew a gun. One shot was fired, and the ranger fell dead. As Richard bent over the man to see if he could help, his erstwhile friend fled. Other keepers ran up to find Richard Gordon alone with the dead man. He was taken, tried, and hanged. On the morning of his arrest, Mary walked forlornly to the tree where she had spent happy hours with her lover. It was completely bare of leaves, a dead skeleton of a tree. During the days leading up to Richard's trial, Mary would wander the chase, talking to herself and singing. She even took to sleeping on the ground under the skeleton tree. She had lost her wits, everyone said. Finally, on the day her lover was hanged, Mary walked down to a pool of clear water, and as the prison bell tolled, she drowned herself in it. The skeleton tree never grew leaves again, and it has stood there for 250 years, a stark memorial to the hanged poacher and his drowned lover. As the night becomes darker, let's have a look at a tale from Ghosts and the Paranormal. We're heading south to Postbridge Road, Dartmoor. Sometimes Dartmoor can be a desolate place. It is no surprise to anyone who has the misfortune to be passing across the moor at night or in fog that it is one of the most haunted places in Britain. The road across Dartmoor in Devon passes between two settlements, first Postbridge and then two bridges. During the 20th century, the section of road between these two places was the scene of some seriously scary goings-on. In each case, drivers reported that the steering wheel of their car seemed to be pulled to one side, making them swerve and even sometimes crash. This also happened to cyclists and motorcyclists who were similarly derailed by a tugging on their handlebars. In the early 1920s, a sinister development began. An army captain travelling the road on his motorbike felt a pair of invisible hands grab him and push him over. When he stood up, there was no one there. Shortly after, a young woman called Florence felt her whole car vibrate. When she stopped to compose herself, she was horrified to see a pair of hairy hands pressed against her windscreen. The vision vanished as she screamed, and somehow she drove herself out of danger. The local authority tried to reduce the number of incidents on this stretch of road by making repairs, but to no avail. The ghoulish experience continued when a couple in a caravan decided to stop there for the night because a dense fog had suddenly descended on the moor. The wife was woken by a scratching noise. As she sat up, she felt an eerie chill surround her, and she looked up to see the very same horrible hands at the window. Petrified, she made the sign of a cross on the glass, whereupon the hands disappeared. No one has ever proposed an explanation for these terrible experiences, beyond mentioning the locals' belief that this stretch of road has long been cursed by a spirit who met his end in this remote spot and has ever since been seeking other souls to join him.